Video game companies make more money from digital sales, so naturally, you'd think the entire industry wants to get rid of physical media altogether. However, even though there's a lot of gamers out there who actually want this, there's still way too many people out there willing to fight to the death to keep their rights to trade, resell, and preserve their games for any of the big console makers to be the first ones to commit to a digital-only console. And it's for that reason why Sony went out of their way to make sure we had a PS5 that could play physical games. However, even though some people see this as a sign that physical games are on their way out the door, I honestly believe that that's never gonna happen, or at the very least, not anytime remotely soon. Why is that, you ask? Well, sit back in your dad's favorite beanbag, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, the Ayatollah of rock and roll, a camera in all one word, to tell you why physical games are here to stay for a long time to come, and probably until the end of humanity. Alright, so I know there's digital-only people already berating me and my family in the comments, because for some reason, a good portion of that crowd refuses to acknowledge any benefits to physical media whatsoever, even though physical goers never deny the benefits of digital and usually have a respectable digital collection of their own. I mean, no matter what you say to these people, they always seem to feel personally attacked for some reason when you defend physical games, and they typically respond with statements like, yeah, well, have fun getting up and changing your games out, loser. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with preferring digital. In fact, I honestly prefer it for literally everything except for video games. I mean, some of my favorite movies and TV shows like Shirley Ghostman and Wonder Shows aren't available on any streaming services or even digitally, and it is nice to own a few of my other favorite movies even if they are popular. But for the most part, I can't act like I don't prefer the convenience of not having entire rooms in my house dedicated to storing movies and TV shows that I'm only gonna watch once or twice. And seeing as how DVDs and Blu-rays are usually pretty cheap anyway, it makes reselling them not even worth the hassle most of the time. However, with video games, you could save assloads of money by selling your physicals off after you're done with them, or by borrowing games from your friends. And I know this does hurt the developers sometimes, but I'm sorry, if publishers aren't even gonna make digital copies any cheaper, then I'd rather the consumers be the ones with the power. And honestly, I think it's kinda weird that anybody would want to sacrifice these advantages when they don't even affect your ability to buy digital games. And besides, even if you're the type of person who never wants to sell your games, then physical's obviously still the better option for the game preservation, and it's for that reason alone why you shouldn't want them to disappear completely. I mean, there's plenty of digital-only games from the 7th generation that you just can't buy anymore because the license is running out and things of that nature, so regardless of whether or not you want to support the original creators when playing retro games, you're not always able to without physical media, or, well, hacking, of course. But that's illegal, and I'd certainly never condone that here. So even though it supports Capcom to buy the Mega Man Legacy Collection as opposed to buying a physical copy of Mega Man 3 for more money and less extra features, I'm always going to be able to track a copy of Turtles in Time down for the Super Nintendo, even if the prices are a bit hefty these days. And yeah, I know most modern games are constantly updated to the point where the physicals are just going to be paperweights someday once they stop receiving online support, but I think the real problem with that is that we've normalized the idea of developers releasing incomplete games, with the idea being that they could just patch them whenever they want. And look, I understand that updates and DLC done tastefully can still enhance games that are totally completed, and since that content's only going to be available via online updates, then physical is in fact becoming more obsolete as time goes by, since most physical games in the modern day are missing all the patches and what have you. However, aside from being able to resell your games while they're still being supported, many people, including myself, are still willing to fight for the option of physical media, despite video game companies trying to sway us in a digital-only future. And it's for that reason why nobody wants to be the first company to make a digital-only next-generation console, since doing so is basically going to guarantee that you'll be crushed by your competition, even though all the big console makers probably want to go mostly digital anyway. I mean, we all saw how badly the digital-only PSP Go flopped, and while that might not have been the only reason that it flopped, it definitely was the main reason. But you know what, as much as I'm sure gaming companies would love to keep all the profits from digital sales rather than sharing some of it with retailers after producing and shipping physical copies out, I'd still wager that impulse buys for physical games do way too much for publishers to where it'd be a terrible idea to just throw that all away. I mean, just think about how many people stop to get horse milk at Caldor's on the way home from work only to be tempted by a copy of Bone Storm. This may sound crazy to some of you, but the majority of people who buy video games don't keep up with the industry like those of us who watch gaming channels on YouTube, because if they did, there wouldn't be over 20 million Switch owners who don't own Super Mario Odyssey. The only way a lot of people even know which games are coming out is by going to the store and seeing physical copies in front of them, and I know that they could still see these games digitally if they go out of their way to check the PlayStation Network out or whatever, but that requires a conscious effort as opposed to being intrigued by games you're never going to hear about while shopping for unrelated things. And yeah, I know commercials and ads work if you're trying to promote games to casuals, but even then, you only see those for AAA games, and only for like a month or two at most. I mean, I stay pretty up to date on what games are coming out, but even I see new stuff all the time just by crossing paths with the physicals, so I feel pretty confident in saying that physical games can still be beneficial to developers in many ways, even if the used games market is doing its fair share of damage. But trust me, just because I'm fully against an all-digital gaming world, it doesn't mean that I'm delusional, or that I'm just trying to pretend like physical games aren't going to keep losing prominence over time like music and movies have. Granted, that is a tad bit different since the formats with those mediums don't change nearly as often as it does with video games, but it's still proof that while the majority are preferring digital more and more as time goes goes on, there's always gonna be enough people who want physical media to make it worth keeping around. I mean, after all, they still make friggin' vinyl, so the idea that physical video games are going away anytime even remotely soon just baffles me. Although, admittedly, the PS5 having a digital-only model is definitely a step closer to physicals being more of a novelty. And you know what? I can't even say that this surprises me, because for the past year or two, I've been predicting that if the physical media gang ever shrinks down small enough, then we might even see external drives on consoles that exist solely for collectors. And the problem with that is that if physical media ever became enough of a niche, then we'd probably only see select games getting physical copies, and only after they've gotten all their updates and DLC, kinda like what we see with Sonic Mania Plus and what Limited Run does with a lot of modern indie games. And sure, it'd be great for all the extra content and updates to be on the discs or cartridges, but obviously it'd also suck at the same time, because it'd mean that if you want to play all the newest games, then you'd have to buy digitally first, and then have to buy the same game again later on if collecting means that much to you. And if too many people skip the digital in favor of a physical later on, then some titles might not even qualify for a physical. But I'm sure if that were the case, then we'd probably still be living in a world where most people prefer physical copies. And yeah, I know that might seem far-fetched to some of you, but there's still tons of collectors out there who buy limited reprints of retro games just for the sake of collecting them. And despite how much digital-only people hate the existence of physical media, you can mark my ass that demographic's never gonna go away. And as long as publishers love making money, they're always gonna capitalize on that fact, so personally, I don't think physical media is going anywhere until the end of humanity, which probably won't be for another year or two at least. But anyway, what do you think? Does having the option for a digital-only PS5 spell doom for physical games, or is there always gonna be enough people out there who want physical to make it worthwhile for companies to keep doing? Either way, let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody at some point. But let me tell you, if there's two people who deserve to be made into physical copies, then it would definitely be today's patrons of the day, Jizz Noof and Alec Duncan. If you want to be badasses like these two, then consider supporting FU Game Crew on Patreon for loot boxes and silly rewards in the mail. Send pictures or videos of you rocking merch if you want to make cameos in my videos, and follow me on Twitch if you ever want to hang out whenever I play video games sometimes. My name's Cameron, all one word, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.